we already have an idea about what an angle is, right? If I kind of like drop back to that gold sheet that I passed out the very first day of class that we filled in, okay, an angle, right, it's two rays that have a common endpoint. They have the same kind of like starting point. So here in this case, there's one ray, ray QP, there's ray QR, right, and they both have that common starting point Q, common endpoint, starting point, whatever you want to call it there, Q. And those two rays together then create an angle right here. Okay, and we have different ways we can name that angle. So I want to make sure we're very good, because naming angles is going to be super important for us to know what, you know, I'm talking about when I name an angle, and for you to be able to describe what you're talking about accurately to me. So naming an angle is very important. Okay. The best way to name an angle, well, first, before we name the angle, I guess we should probably draw one, right? Would be helpful here. So let's draw a little angle. Yeah, be careful. It's not angel. Angel is A-N-G-E-L. Angle is A-N-G-L-E. Okay. All right. So, to name this angle, someone want to raise their hand and tell me what's one way that we can name this angle? Someone want to raise your hand and tell me, all right? Let's go, Kate, yeah. Okay, so that's a way to describe it. So you're right, we're going to get to that. What I mean is like a name. If I wanted to refer to this angle, how would I name it? Like what name would I give it? No, sure? Okay, that's fine. Alex, do you want to say something? No? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, that's right, Antoinette. So yeah, angle PQR. Okay, that's one way to name it. Okay, so that's one name. This angle PQR. All right. But is that the only way? We have another way we can name this. What's another way we can name this? Go ahead. Kanye. Okay, so yes, in this case, if we look here, Q is the, what do we call this point here when it's at the pointy part of the angle? That's called the vertex, okay? That's the vertex, the pointy part. And since there's no other angle at that same vertex, right, this is the only angle that has this vertex, so we can also use this single letter Q. In this case, because there's only one angle here at that vertex, we call that angle Q, just by the single letter. Okay. There's one other three-letter name we could use here, though. So let's go to Elijah. Very good. Angle RQP is talking about the same thing. Okay. Could I call this angle, what about like angle QRP? Could I say that's a name for the angle? Yeah. No, okay. The vertex always has to be the middle letter there. Okay, so Q, the pointy part of the angle, Q has to be the middle part of the name. You can't put the Q with the pointy part somewhere else, so no, that's not right. Okay, the vertex of the angle must be the middle letter. Okay, it must be the middle letter. All right, and there's one other way we could kind of like identify this. So if you're working with an angle and maybe you don't like using the three-letter name, or you want to use this, don't use a single-letter name, you can also put a number label in there like that. So I could put like a little 1 or a 2 or a 3, depending on how many angles I'm working with here. And we could also then, once I put that 1 in, I could refer to that now as angle 1. Okay, angle 1.
On a quiz or a test, are you going to have something like that when you have the numbers?
You, on a quiz or a test, there might be numbers put in, and then you can just, again, give me the number, okay? Or sometimes, if we're on, like, certain problems, you can put a number in yourself and just refer to the number instead of the name with the letters, okay? So then let's try this here. So as a quick example, all right, what I would like you to do is to name angle 2 in the figure below. Okay, so I want you to name angle 2 here. So I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to draw a picture here for you. I want you to name that angle 2. Okay, do this. Do this. Okay, so you can see we have lots of different angles here. Okay. I'll put that a 1 there, 2, and then 3. Okay. So go ahead, take, a couple seconds there, and just tell me what the name of angle 2 is. Obviously, you can't use angle 2 because that's already been named, angle 2. So don't use the name angle 2, but give me another name for angle 2 there. Okay, just take 2 seconds. Maybe once you finish sketching it down, give me another name for angle 2. Just another name for that angle 2. Once you've got it drawn down, give me another name. Yes. You're welcome. All right, so Thomas, you got another name for me here for angle 2? What can we call that? Okay, so, right, that's a way to describe it, but give me a name. Like what I mean, for example, here, when we talked about this angle, I named it angle PQR, or we were also said we could call it angle Q, or we could call it angle RQP. What could I call this angle 2? Right here, what letters could I use to name it? B and C, and one other letter? E, yeah, so name it angle B, E, C. Okay? Did anyone come up with a different name besides angle B, E, C? Okay. Gabe, what'd you come up with? Angle C, E, B. Okay, so that's another option too. Anyone have a different name than that? Robert? BED. BED. Okay, so now BED is talking about this big angle right here. So now that does include angle 2, but what other angle does that include as well, Robert? It also includes angle 3. It just said here to name just angle 2. So we wouldn't want to say BED because that's doing 2 and 3. So Antoinette, you have another one? Angle E. Okay, now here's why I want to talk about this one. Okay, angle E, we want to say, oh yeah, okay, 2 has its vertex at E, so we can just say angle E. But the problem with saying angle E, okay, if I were to talk to you guys and say, okay, go ahead and measure angle E. Well, some of you might look at this picture and say, okay, angle E, that's the vertex for angle 3, so I'll go over here with my protractor and I'll measure angle 3, right, and go this way. But some of you might say, oh wait, BEC, E is the vertex of angle 2, so now I'm supposed to measure angle 2. Or some of you might say, oh, angle E, or point E, that's the vertex of angle AEB, and so I'm supposed to measure this one. And you can see how that can be confusing, right? If I just say angle E for this picture, it's not really clear which of these 3 angles I would be talking about, okay? And so in this case, do we want to use the single letter name? No. Yeah, no, we do not, okay? In this case, you don't. In this case, you can see it's okay. Why? Because there's only one angle that I could possibly be referring to at angle Q. But here, angle E, it could refer to a bunch of different angles, and so we don't want to just use that, okay? If that's unclear to you, if you're like, well, I'm not sure then, Mr. Whitmire, when I'm supposed to use 3 or when I'm supposed to use 1, always use 3. If you always use the 3 letters, that's going to work for both this situation and for this situation, okay? So always use 3 if you're just not sure. Okay. All right. So let's get now to classifying angles, which some of you guys are already doing a great job with. All right, classifying angles. All right. And so I'm going to draw some angles here. All right, I'm going to call this A. I'm leaving a little bit of space above these here because we're going to label what they are, but I'm just going to draw their pictures first. I'm going to draw 4 different kinds of angles here. And then the last one. Question? Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, so I got 3 different angles drawn here. One's angle A, one's angle B, one's angle C, and one is angle D. Okay, and I drew these very specifically, right? All right, so, Gabe, if I were to now describe this angle, right, like you said before, what would I call this angle? An acute angle, right? So we call this angle an acute angle. All right, and Gabe, what clued you into the fact that this angle was an acute angle? How are you able to describe that as being acute?
That is less than 90 degrees.
Very good. Excellent mathematical terminology there. Right. The measure of angle A, notice I put a little m here. Okay, we're talking about the measure of angle A because we're talking about it being less than 90 degrees. Degrees are a way to measure angles. We're actually going to learn about another way to measure angles later in this class called radians. Okay, just like, you know, when you measure a length, you can measure it in inches, centimeters, millimeters, miles, kilometers, whatever. Angles have other ways to measure them besides just degrees. We also will learn another one called radians, but that's later. Okay, but yes, the measure of angle A is less than 90 degrees. Good. Okay, let's see here. So Piper, what would we call this angle? A right angle. That is correct. And what makes it a right angle? Yep, exactly right. The measure of angle B is exactly 90 degrees. In fact, isn't that what the little box means, right? When you see a little box and an angle like that, that means it's a 90-degree angle exactly. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Addison, how about you? Angle C. What will we? Do you know what we call this one? Obtuse. That's right, an obtuse angle. And what makes it obtuse? Addison, what makes it obtuse? It's more than 90 degrees, but it also, and this is something that maybe you guys aren't taught. Okay, it's got to be greater than 90 degrees. So the measure of angle C is greater than that 90 degrees. Okay, but it has to also be less than another measure, 180, right? It can't be greater than 180, so it's got to be between 90 and 180 degrees, okay? And that's something when I was taught it in high school, I always just remember, oh, it's bigger than 90, but actually it should also be less than 180 too, okay? All right, and then this next one, which looks just like a line here, right? So let's go to column W. All right, what would we call this angle here? Any idea? Yeah, exactly right. It's a straight angle. This one I don't know. Again, I don't really remember learning this one. I just, but yes, it's a straight angle. Okay, or else, we could also call it a line. And what is the measure then here of this angle D? What would that measure be there, Colin? Yeah, 180 degrees. Exactly right. A straight line also makes a 180 degree angle, okay? Also makes a 180 degree angle. So there you go. Good. All right. So that's how we should be able to classify angles. You guys sound like you're already on the ball with that, though, so that's good. The next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to show you guys how to use a protractor real quick, and then we're going to kind of get into an assignment, okay? So we're going to draw 2 angles here. So the first thing we'll draw is a 50-degree angle. Okay, so we're just going to do that with our protractors here. All right, a protractor is one of the tools we'll be using here in geometry. All right, so let me just be very careful here because for some reason students get this confused. So I'm going to start right now. Okay. This is a protractor. This is a compass. Protractor, compass. Protractor, compass. Okay. We use them. They're tools in geometry, but sometimes students get them confused and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure you understand. Protractor, angle measure, compass, pointy with a pencil. Okay. So to draw a 50-degree angle, the first thing we need to start with, well, we need to start with something. We can't just like go in here and just like throw our protractor down and just start drawing a 50-degree angle, because we have, the protractor needs something to measure off of. So the first thing you should do is draw one side of your angle. All right? And I'm going to go ahead and make this side right here it's going to be my vertex. All right? So I'll call that vertex, I don't know, let's call this vertex X. And then I'll make this here Y. And so we have our first ray. Remember, an angle is just two rays that have a common endpoint. So this will be our first ray. And now we're going to use our protractors, right, to measure that 50-degree angle. Now this can get a little bit tricky here sometimes, right? So first of all, if you have a protractor like I have right here, there's kind of two protractors that I have in there. I've got this kind of protractor, and then I have this kind of protractor. Okay, you can see I have two different kinds. Okay, and they line up slightly differently. If you're using this protractor, you want to line the protractor up, line your one side along the bottom edge of the protractor, okay, and so that this vertical line is kind of like, targeting our vertex there, just like that, right? Okay, so just like that, we've lined it up. Again, if you have a protractor like this, that's on the bottom edge. Now, you're going to look over here, and if you look, there's two sets of numbers, and this can mess students up. If we're trying to do a 50-degree angle, I see a 50-degree angle here, but I also see a 50-degree angle here. Which 50-degree angle am I supposed to use? The one on the inside or the one on the outside? Yeah, it's the inside. Now, can someone raise your hand and tell us how we know that? So, Alex, how did you know that it was the inside one? Okay, so that's a great way to see it. So Alex knows, okay, 50 degrees, that's acute. So it's got to be smaller than a 90-degree angle. If I use this 50 degrees, I'm going to be making a very obtuse angle here, and so that's not right, okay? And he just knew that it's going to be the shorter 50 degrees here, okay? Another way you can tell, if you're like unsure about that, if you look here, okay, this is our starting side. Should our starting side start at 0 or should it start at 180? Start at 0 and we should count up, right? So 0, it's the inside number, right? And 180 is the outside. So we want to use the inside numbers to the 150, and we can just mark it off right there, just below that 50-degree angle. Okay? And then once you have that mark, now you can use your straight edge of your protractor to complete the angle. And there it is. 50 degrees. We can mark that in there because that's how we measured. And we can call this like point Z or something like that. Okay. All right, and my Z's, guys, I don't know. This is something I don't always tell all my students. I put a little line inside my Z so that way you know it's not a number 2. All right. That way you know it's not a number 2. So there's a 50-degree angle. All right, we're going to do one more here. Let's draw a 100-degree angle. Okay, draw a 100-degree angle. All right. Ooh, and I forgot to show you guys. If you had the other protractor, does anyone have this other protractor in front of them? Does anyone have this other protractor in front of them? The other one? Okay, good. If you didn't do that, never mind then. This one, if you ever choose this one, you'll see that it's got this little circle here. That's where you want to center your vertex. The circle should be on your vertex. And then you line up this line, not the bottom edge, but you line up this line along your angle there like that. Okay, so you notice the bottom edge is not actually touched there. Anyway, all right. Just to be different here, I'm going to start off with a kind of a weird side. Okay, like that. I'm going to draw my ray like that. Just different, you know. Not all of our angles are going to have this nice flat bottom like that. It's going to sometimes be angled up. Okay. So again, we're going to take our protractors, right? If you're using this protractor, you're going to line up on the bottom edge there, and then the little line it up to, like so. Okay, again, for a 100-degree angle, I see 100 showing up twice. I see a 100 degree there, I see 100 degree there. Which set of numbers should I use? Should I use the inside 100 or the outside 100? Yeah, we want the inside 100. Again, this side of our angle starts at 0, and so we want to count up to the 100, so right there, 100 degrees, and mark it off. Okay. And believe it or not, guys, all right, we're going to be doing constructions later on using compasses and straight edges and things, and the more precise you are, the better your pictures are going to turn out, and like we're going to be able to do some kind of interesting things with those. So being precise is going to be kind of important, using these tools well. All right. Those of you know that are interested in construction, or you do construction, or you have to do any sort of like carpentry or anything or whatever. Measure twice, cut once, right? That way, you measure it twice, make sure you're accurate. And so there it is, right there, 100 degrees. Okay. All right. Questions on any of that? All right. So let me give you guys your homework so you can kind of get started.